Good evening and welcome to LMC-TV's live election night coverage. I'm Alice Bloom and I'll be your host for the evening. Tonight we're watching three races closely in the village of Mamaroneck, the town of Mamaroneck, and the 7th District County Legislator race. In the village of Mamaroneck, incumbent Mayor Norm Rosenblum, Republican, Conservative, and Independence lines, running for a second term, and he's being challenged by Democratic trustee Tony Ryan. Rosenblum is a Director of International Marketing and Contracts for Safe Flight Instrument Corp. In White Plains. He served as a trustee previously from 1980 to 82, and he lost previous mayoral bids to Susie Oppenheimer in 1983, and then again to Paul Noto in 1991, before winning the mayoral seat when he ran against Kathy Sable 2 years ago. Ryan is an executive assistant at a military sales company in Stamford, Connecticut. She served as village trustee from 1987 to 89 and returned in 2006 and has been reelected twice. Another race, trustee deputy mayor Lou Santoro, also running on the Republican, Conservative, and Independence lines, is being challenged by a newcomer, Scott Dufault, on the Democratic line. Santoro is a former fire chief for the town of Mamaroneck. He retired 4 years ago after 21 years as a water treatment plant operator for Westchester Joint Waterworks. Dufault is an attorney with Queen's Law Associates. He volunteers as a soccer coach and has served on the Friends of the Village of Mamaroneck Library Board. Now, what's at stake in the Village of Mamaroneck? If both GOP incumbents win, then the Democrats would retain a 3-seat majority on the board, and Ryan would continue on the board, retaining her seat as trustee. If both Democrats win, Ryan would take over as mayor, and she'd appoint someone to finish her 2-year trustee term, and Dufault would replace Santoro. In that case, the Democrats would regain the 5-0 control they lost in 2009. In the town of Mamaroneck, we are losing our long-serving supervisor, Valerie O'Keefe, who's retiring this year. She's stepping down after 12 years in office. She'll be succeeded by Councilwoman Nancy Seligson, who runs without opposition. There are 3 candidates for the 2 council seats in the town of Mamaroneck. Incumbent and councilwoman with 16 years of service on the town council is Phyllis Whitner, running on the Democratic line. Phyllis has been a tenacious grant writer who has brought in over $2 million to the town of Mamaroneck. Newcomers Abby Katz, running on the Democratic line, is an accountant who worked in financial project management for more than 20 years, and among her other commitments is a community volunteer as a treasurer of the Murray Avenue PTA and a volunteer with the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force. Another person running for the first time for a council seat is Seth Marcus, running on the Republican, Conservative, and Independence line. He's an attorney in private practice for more than 14 years. He also serves on the Zoning Board of Appeals and as a board member of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Little League. Each is making a first bid for a seat on the town council. Now, voters must choose 2 of the 3 candidates. Now, running unopposed for town justice is attorney Jean Marie Brescia, a Democrat, is the incumbent. And for town clerk, Christina Battaglia, also an incumbent. Now, the race that's quite exciting is in the 7th District for County Legislature. County Legislature serves in the 7th District that covers Larchmont, Mamaroneck, and Rye. Incumbent Judy Myers is running on the Democratic, Working Families, and Independence lines. Myers served on the Mamaroneck Town Council for several terms before being elected to the County Board of Legislators, where she has served for the last 6 years. She's being challenged by Rye City Councilwoman Susanna Keith, running on the Republican and Conservative lines. Keith's background is in marketing. She presently serves on the Rye City Council and as a volunteer with the PTO, Twig, and the New York Junior League. Why is this race important? The Democrats now have a 12-5 majority on the County Board of Legislators. But all 17 seats are open, which is a very rare situation. If the Republicans get even 1 additional seat on the board, it will be a victory for the county executive because it will break the Democrats' supermajority of 12 votes, which is needed to override County Executive Rob Astorino's vetoes, which the board has done over and over again. A best case for the GOP would be gaining 4 seats, giving them a clear 9-8 majority and the ability to choose their own chairman. But even picking up a couple of seats would be a win for the Republicans, who might then broker a deal to choose a new chairman. Now, we have reporters at headquarters, at the Republican headquarters and the Democratic headquarters. Reporters Laura Cruz-Colon and Christina Carina Forrest are at the Republican headquarters, and the Democratic headquarters have Eric Lewis and Matt Meyerson. They'll be calling in, bringing us results of our local election in the village of Mamaroneck and the town of Mamaroneck just as soon as it is available. They'll be calling us, and they'll be coming in later with tapes of acceptance and concession speeches. Now, as I always do, I usually choose a local topic to highlight while we await the election results. The village of Mamaroneck's new and absolutely breathtaking library opened its doors in June. The reviews have been overwhelmingly positive. In fact, the library has dispensed 1,000 new library cards since it reopened. I invited Library Board President Jeff Megan to be my guest for a conversation about the new library and to reflect on the efforts it took to bring this project to fruition and to brag a little about what has been achieved for our community. We'll be bringing you that conversation on tape a little later. But wait, there's more. Later in the evening, we'll be joined by candidates themselves who always come in to recap the election results and give us a heads up on issues pending and perhaps in important community matters that didn't receive enough attention during the campaign. And live in our studio tonight, we'll have a special guest. Retiring Town of Mamaroneck Supervisor Valerie O'Keefe will be here to reflect on her tenure and candidly assess what the state of the town is now. Perhaps she'll even share some behind-the-scenes tales that she was reluctant to relate while in office. So stay with us throughout the evening. Without further ado, we need to have a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back with Valerie O'Keefe.
LMC-TV is brought to you in part by contributions from viewers like you and underwriting grants from the following local businesses.
Brewers Hardware, located at 161 East Boston Post Road. Serving the maritime and hardware needs of Larchmont and Mamaroneck since 1879. Brewers Hardware is proud to support LMC-TV in its efforts to bring quality community programming to Larchmont and Mamaroneck. Call us at 698-3232 or on the web at rgbrewer.com. Brewers Hardware. Aquavision Scuba, for all your diving and kayaking needs. Aquavision Scuba is a proud sponsor of LMC-TV. Call 381-1884. The Voza Law Firm, providing personalized legal assistance to clients, is a proud supporter of LMC-TV. Call 381-9100. Vincent Garage, tuning, towing, and repairing cars in Mamaroneck for over a quarter of a century. Located at 636 Fenimore Road, 698-5252. Vincent Garage salutes LMC-TV. The UPS Store, for all your shipping, printing, and business needs. Serving the community for over 17 years. 1214 West Boston Post Road. Call 833-1955. Robert's Army and Navy Store, one-stop shopping for work, play, dress. Proud to be part of the community since 1931. Proud to be a sponsor of LMC-TV, located at 342 Mamaroneck Avenue. Call 698-0969.
To join these local businesses in support of LMC-TV, call 381-2002, extension 201, or visit us on the website at lmc-tv.org.
Welcome back. And here with me in the studio is one of my favorite guests, Valerie O'Keefe. Valerie, I know you're not going to be supervisor very much longer,
no,
but will you still come back?
6.5 weeks.
It sounds like you're a little anxious.
Oh, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, you've served for a long time, and you've certainly accomplished a great deal. I'm going to give you a minute to brag before I really start to pepper you with questions. If there's something that you are really proud of accomplishing in your tenure, what would that be?
Well, I think one of the big things when you look back on it was the IKEA store that we stopped from being constructed right next to the border of the town of Mamaroneck, which had no plans for ingress or egress from the thruway. They were going to get off the thruway and wander through the town of Mamaroneck to go to an IKEA store.
It's so interesting how we forget about that, but
that was a massive enterprise of people from the village of Larchmont, the unincorporated area, some people from the village of Mamaroneck, people from New Rochelle, environmental people, and we had citizens who were very big experts on either real property law or environmental things, and we coalesced these people and we pushed this huge big corporation back, which had hired that something Marsteller, that giant PR firm, international PR firm, and we pushed them back.
Well, this was a real David and Goliath moment, I think.
So that was one thing that I thought was good. And then some of the other things is we've been able to take over into one thing, the senior citizen programs. We had one in the village of Mamaroneck and another one which was much smaller in the town and the village of Larchmont. And we put that all together in the VFW hall with much better programs for everybody. And we've merged all the Section 8 and community service into the town, so that we took over the village of Mamaroneck Section 8 and community services, so we do all that in one place, which has taken pressure off the two villages, but it's made it better for the town because it's a bigger program with more people. So these are consolidation type things that we've done.
Now, and you've spearheaded that, or the people in the town spearheaded
pretty
those?
much. I mean, yes, I'd say so. I mean, obviously with the cooperation of the people in the villages.
Certainly, but you shepherded it along.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm really proud of before I leave is the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont since 1920-something has had a coordinated garbage pickup, the Sanitation Commission. And we've just almost finished building a new prefabricated building down at the town yard for the sanitation men. New clean showers, new lockers, new everything. We were in like crummy old trailers. So that we also did build a new highway garage. Well, I've been the supervisor, and we're now doing a lot more of the mechanical work on fire trucks and garbage trucks and things that we used to send out, which cost a lot of money. We have a very good mechanical department there. So,
do you do it just for the town? How about for the village of Mamaroneck?
Well, if the village of Mamaroneck asked us to help them, we would, but we're doing more work with the village of Larchmont, actually.
It always seems to have been that way. There was a natural
affinity. It's right next door, you see. The village of Larchmont truck goes right by Myrtle Boulevard.
But if there was interest in the village of Mamaroneck, would it be entertained positively?
Absolutely, and then also the school district doesn't really have a place to fill up with gas. It doesn't have a lot of real property to move their school buses and fill their vehicles, and they could do that. We could do that with them too.
Have they? Where do they do it now?
We're talking them. They over by the bus garage, but I don't know where they actually go get the gas. I don't know where they get it for all their vehicles.
And you do it at the yard?
We do it at the yard, but we'd have to be careful that everybody wasn't rushing in there at the same time. But these are the kind of things that we help each other with.
Coordinate. I thought of you the other day. We've seen so much positive change on the Boston Post Road in the area that's the town of Mamaroneck. We now have Petco, where there used to be Cooks,
and then
it was a brief time it was a Dwayne Reed and whatever. And I know how you anguished over those sites, and that's finally come to fruition. Petco seems like a happy location.
It doesn't smell.
No.
I mean, like, it's not giving off odors. They're not cooking in there.
No, and it seems to have a nice client. It seems like a good site for it. They've got adequate parking, and there's not too much parking. You don't have a lot of traffic. But then we see that Blockbuster has gone out.
Now, Blockbuster's gone out, and Walgreens wants to come in there. And under the current zoning, if they don't change the footprint at all, they're going to be able to go right into that place without any zoning changes. So what they're going to do, theoretically, is the furniture store will move over to where the Sleepy's or whatever that place was, mattress, and they'll take that whole side by the Hommick School and have that as a drugstore. Well, of course, there's some worry about that. What happens if everyone rushes in to get their Lipitor while the kids are all, mothers are driving them into school?
Yes, it's a very bad spot.
So we're looking at that. It's the traffic that's a problem there.
Right, but I've seen how much you accomplished, and then a store goes out. You can't really control that very much. If there's anything that's been the biggest source of anguish for you as supervisor, what would that have been?
Well, I'd say one of the things that's got me worried, there are a couple of things that have me worried. One is this housing settlement has got me worried because
the county
housing settlement, it seems that the federal government, in the guise of the HUD, Housing and Urban Development, have come into Westchester County making accusations that the zoning is actually exclusionary and on purpose based on racial discrimination. And that just turns my stomach because it is not based on racial discrimination. What it's based on, what's keeping people out of places is money. Now, maybe I would like to live in a $5 million house in Orienta. I can't live in a house in Orienta that's cost $5 million, but I could live in a $750,000 house. And if I were black or Hispanic and I had $5 million, I could move there, or I could move to where I'm living. We did not pass these zoning laws throughout Westchester based to try to keep people out because of race. And I find that the people from HUD make idiotic statements, like it was in the Journal News on Sunday, that there was some man from HUD that said now they're going to build houses in Rye, and it's near Portchester. And he said, for all practical purposes, these people live in Portchester. Well, they're not. They're going to go to Rye schools, they're going to have Rye police, they're going to have Rye fire department, they're going to have Rye taxes, they're going to have Rye ambulances. So it's this kind, we're now getting to be afraid of the federal government. And what happened was, if you take the money, Andy Spano signed things that say, yes, we're doing fair and affordable housing. It was a term of art that nobody understood. Rather than coming in and say, can we work with you? Can we do something with you? They came down with an iron fist. And now all the towns are scared of the federal government. And all these forms, everybody's looking at the forms, and you never know whether there's going to be another one of these private organizations that's going to bring a lawsuit under the Tort Claims Act or something, and the iron fist comes down. There's an anxiety among perfectly decent people who want to have affordable housing, which we have. We have the Hammocks Park apartments, and Larchmont's now getting a whole bunch of apartments.
On the Palmer site?
On the Palmer site, the Village of Mamaroneck has done yeoman's work here. And to have this sweeping kind of condemnation by the federal government, by people who really don't know what they're talking about, worries me, because I think what it does is divides people. And the one thing I've tried to do is bring people in the community together, not divide them. And I think that Washington, by meddling into things where they really don't know what they're doing, is causing anxiety and distrust between people.
Where we left it
people.
last year, actually, we covered that quite extensively in a conversation that we aired on election night just a year ago. And as I understood it, there was a monitor appointed,
There is a monitor.
Jim Johnson, I believe, who was going to help oversee the implementation of the agreement. And the agreement was that 31 communities, I believe, had to propose, come forward with proposals for affordable housing in their communities, and then they would be reviewed.
The monitor has been rational. The monitor has been reasonable. But then you have people from HUD that come in that are adding things. For example, the agreement said that you'd have a certain number of buildings, apartments. Now this guy, HUD, wants to have 3-bedroom apartments. Well, that wasn't part of the deal. They're adding things that were not part of the settlement, which is not what the monitor's doing. It's just this overarching, overreaching, overweening know-it-allism of Washington coming into Westchester County, where they don't understand home rule. They think the county has control of zoning, which it doesn't have. The county, when Mr. Spano was there, hired people to come and do a survey of what we had. We talked to them. They came from Georgia. They did not understand that Westchester County was not in control of the zoning. That if you went to Mamaroneck Village, it had one zoning. You went to Armonk, it had another.
That's what you mean by home rule. Each community has its own zoning.
They could not get this through their heads. So the thought is now that Westchester County should be suing Mamaroneck Town, Harrison, or whatever it is, not Harrison, Bedford, because they have, in effect, segregated their municipalities because of their zoning. This is complicated, but the basic facts they're not getting. And that worries me because it stirs up people, it riles them up, it thinks that there is a mens rea, an evil intent on the part of people where there isn't.
I see. I didn't realize it had become that vociferous. Is there one particular issue that made you decide it was time? Well,
you always know when to leave. And, you know, it's like you know when to hold them and when to fold them. And looking at Mr. Bloomberg and looking at Governor Pataki, Mr. Pataki was very successful his first 2 terms. The third term, he made all kinds of agreements with unions, put us in the hole. Bloomberg did fine. He was excellent. Now he wants to have the third term. So then he gives money to people who were on the city council to vote themselves, to get rid of the term limits. And now I think that he's not as effective as he was. Things change, people change, the age of the people change. The interests of the people of the middle age group are not necessarily the interests that I have. So it's time to get somebody who's like with it and bow out. So that's my feeling.
Go out on a high note,
Yeah.
for sure.
Plus the fact you need new blood, you need pep, you need zip, you need new blood. Younger people with more pep,
Now,
mental pep.
I think you've always had lots of pep, actually. I think you've decided that perhaps it was time for somebody else to take over, but I don't think anyone's ever accused you of being a little lackadaisical.
I'm
Never.
not lackadaisical, but you've done what you can do, and now it's time to let somebody else have a shot.
Now, how do you feel about reval, the status of reval
I'm
in the
very
town?
happy that the town voted to enter into a contract with a reval company, Gar Associates. It's very well thought of in New York State. And I think that they're the best ones that we could hire, and I think that they're real professionals, and I think that it's absolutely time to do the reval. And that was a unanimous decision. Now what we'll do is we'll go now, and these people will get new values, and they'll put out a piece of paper and it says, Alice, your home we think is this amount, Valerie, yours is this amount. If we don't like that, we come in and meet with them. We say, no, you're wrong on this. The fair market value is whatever it is. Then, after that, the town board then will or will not adopt that role that the company comes up with.
I see. And how much negotiating space do the individuals in
I
this
think
company have?
they pretty much. I mean, if you come in with papers showing what the place down the street sold for, or that you have an old roof and they thought you had a new roof, or you have,
Because
tin
I remember
pipes or
when this
something.
was done in the town of Rye, the
That
Rye
was a whole different way of doing it.
It was a different way of doing it, and the folks in Rye Neck that I know were extremely upset. Many claiming that they were assessed for amenities they didn't own,
Yeah,
pools
we're
and
gonna
patios
we're
and
going to
whatever.
do this in a top-notch, top-drawer, A-plus way, and it's going to cost more to do it. Some of the things in Rye I think were done kind of on the cheap. We also have more technology now. We have, what do you call it?
The GIS.
GIS, but we have pictures that the county can give us, oblique pictures that can show whether you do or do not have a swimming pool, you do or do not have an extra room. You know, you say you have, on the card it says you have 3 rooms in the house, and now we take a picture and there are 9 rooms. We know something's wrong. But and we also sending out very experienced people to go out. We don't have college kids with clipboards. We have real professionals doing this.
Okay.
We don't want to do it like Rye did it.
Okay.
We're doing it more like Pelham or like Bronxville did it.
But because the town of many people who live in the town of Mamaroneck also live in the village of Mamaroneck.
That's correct.
And a number of people live in the village of Larchmont.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it possible that they will have 2 different assessments for the same property?
Yes, if they will have the same assessment if they're in the town of Mamaroneck, in the village part of the town of Mamaroneck, or the village of Larchmont, for their school tax, their town tax, and their county tax. If the village does not want to accept our roll, which they may not, they'll have a separate village roll. Where the problem may come is that there will be full assessment value in the village of Mamaroneck and the town side, and theoretically full assessment value in the Rye Neck at the town of Rye side. How that's worked out, I don't know exactly.
Now, what happens to people who get really kiboshed? I mean, through no fault of their own, but they've had a house, usually older homes have been assessed on a different plane, if you will, and they've enjoyed a little bit lower taxes. Let's face it, the taxes for everybody are pretty high here. Nobody's gets a buy. But some people are going to go up significantly.
Some people will.
Is there any relief for those people who are going to enjoy?
There is, under the statute, the New York State statute, it lets you phase it in for 5 years, but over a 5-year period. The trouble is that if you are supposed to go up, then you should go up now, because I'm down here and I'm paying.
No, I understand.
Okay, is there a way to give them relief? There is a theoretical legal way to do it, but no place in New York has ever adopted that 5-year plan of easing it in. Because somebody may move, or, you know.
I could just see it, but you see somebody who gets a $20,000 or $30,000 tax increase. That's a hard nut to swallow.
Well, if it's based on the fair market value, it's based on the fair market value. Some people will get harmed, and other people will
Do you
be helped.
anticipate lots of lawsuits?
No. Because you see, what happens is they still will have the right to grieve the taxes.
Okay.
You'll adopt a new role. They don't like that. They come with this in the next June and grieve it. And if they don't like what the Board of Assessment Review does, then they go to what they call a SCAR hearing, Supreme Court judge who does a small claims hearing. And that's a lawsuit, which is settled quickly. So it's not like...
Okay, so we're going to...
And they haven't had huge lawsuits in the other places that have done it.
Okay, that's
Because they
my
have a
next question.
remedy. They have a remedy that they can
Okay.
take advantage of quickly.
Now, when is this company going to start doing the
It's going to
assessments?
start doing it, collecting data probably in December. And the new role will be ready in, I think, maybe January of 2013,
Okay.
probably.
Relatively
Maybe,
quickly.
yeah, relatively quickly.
And then the implementation would be?
Then they'll bring it to the town board. In the meantime, they'll collect the data. Then they'll call you in and say, Alice, this is what we think. They'll send you a thing. If you want to come in, do you want to come in and talk to us? They'll sit down with you.
With every homeowner who wants to talk to
Yes.
them?
And what we're going to do is have them do educational sessions. We're going to have like 50 to 100 people in a room. You can sign up. We'll do as many as you want, not to 5,000 people. And we're going to tell you how it works, what the law is, what your rights are, what you can do. And people can sign up for it. You'll get a card. And they promised us that they'll keep doing it as much as we want. The other thing these people are going to do, they'll be in touch with the real estate agents. The other people that we interviewed wanted to do this all on their own. Well, the real estate agents are the ones that really know what's going on in the community. So they will have seminars with them and they will be in touch with these people. But they're reasonable and flexible.
Sounds like this would be a perfect thing to have a webinar, you know, these
Oh,
online seminars.
We will, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a whole thing on our website, and we'll have a whole portal that you can go on, and there will be at least one of these informational sessions online that you can watch, but you can also be able to ask questions to the company.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it's being adopted in a very thoughtful manner.
So it took us like 10 years to do it.
Oh, I understand. So are you going to enjoy sitting on the sidelines and watching it play out?
Yeah, I will. But I hope my taxes go down.
Oh,
I'm
you think
sure they
yours are
will.
going to go down? eh?
Everybody thinks they pay too much.
Okay. Well, everybody's paying a lot
Yeah.
more now than they did a few years ago.
But most of it, remember, is going to the school. This is what the people don't get. 60% of it's going to the school, 20% of it's going to the county. That's 80%. And then to the village or the town.
Valerie, I'm going to tell you something you told me years ago. And we were talking
hope it was
about taxes.
true.
Well, you tell me if it was true, and you tell me if you agree
Okay.
with it now. And we were talking about taxes, and I think I had said something like, my taxes have gone up 400%. They've gone up more than that now, but this was a few years ago, since I had bought my house. And you said, well, you know, we all do the best we can, so we tell you we're only raising it, you know, the minimal amount.
Right.
But it's the minimal amount from us, and the minimal amount from the schools, and a minimal amount from the
all
county.
adds up.
And it all adds
up.
up. And that over time has caused this enormous ballooning of taxes in our
Now, one
area.
of the problems that is the town or the villages address is we're under this 2% tax hike thing from the governor, but they didn't take away our, what do you call those things? Mandates. So they say you have to raise your people's retirement
benefits.
18%. 18%. You have to pay your health care 20% or whatever it is. Now, if we're raising things 18 and 20%, how are we going to keep it at 2%? So we do keep it at 2%. We have to get rid of this, we get rid of this, we get rid of this. So now we are down to bare bones. So Nancy, who will be the new supervisor, is going to come in a rather tough situation because there's nobody we can cut much. We've cut people, we've cut services, but now Phyllis Whitner says, how much are the people willing to take? Are they willing to let the grass not be cut in the park? Are they willing to have the garbage picked up once a week instead of twice a week? What are they willing not to have the snow taken away right away? In the unincorporated area, we have black roads. As soon as it snows, we go out and, well, we're not going to be able to do that because of the overtime. So
People will be pretty upset at that.
they'll be upset, but they don't want the tax to go up. But they're in favor of Governor Cuomo's 2%
Is there no way
hike.
to grieve this situation with the state that has
Well,
a man?
yes, the way to grieve it is we keep all the municipal officials, city and town and villages, go up and tell our legislators, we can't stand this anymore.
And nothing happens.
No.
Well, I guess it's a
That
bigger
doesn't
problem.
mean that our legislators ourselves, like George and Susie and our people, aren't understanding it, but you have to realize that in the state assembly, it's virtually controlled by New York City. New York City does not worry about whether somebody in Larchmont gets their snow off, you know.
A different kind of set of concerns. Some time ago, you convened a committee, or you appointed someone to study the ways in which our communities could share services.
We did.
And whatever happened?
Well,
with
what
that?
happened was they came up with a bunch of recommendations, some of which were very helpful, and then some which became somewhat controversial. We had people from the village of Mamaroneck, the village of Larchmont, and the town of Mamaroneck. The village of Mamaroneck, after a while, it didn't seem like we could consolidate as much as we could with the village of Larchmont because, for example, their garbage department has a different union. Their police is different union, you know what I mean? So when you look at uniform services, we already had the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont with one union, with one sanitation. Then the controversial thing happened where the recommendation was that we merge the two detective agencies in the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck, and the recommendation was made that we pick a particular chief to be the head of it, and that blew it apart because they hadn't really interviewed both the chiefs. They hadn't interviewed one chief. It was
irreconcilable.
It was made public in all good faith as a thing to push us along, which would have been much better had it not been, and that we could have had the two chiefs talk to each other, work something out. So that just kind of, so it divided along village-town lines. All the village people said this is a wonderful idea, and all the town elected officials said, no, we don't want to do this.
So not a whole lot came out of that.
So not too much came out of it, but there was a sense that we could do better on the sharing of fields with the school and with the three municipalities, and that has worked very well. This kind of, I don't know what they call it, the arena scheduling where everybody's helping with the fields and all.
Complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated.
But it seems to make a whole lot of sense. Of all the things that you've encountered as supervisor, what things irritate you the most?
Babyish people. It's what Liz Feld called concierge government. Like people call up and they say there's a squirrel lying next to the tree.
Do they call you?
Sometimes, and they want somebody to come in a police car within 5 minutes to pick it up. You know, that kind of thing. There's a pothole. Quick, go look at the pothole. And when you get there, it's about this big. It's because somebody couldn't roller skate over it. That kind of baby stuff. It's annoying when there are other people who really have very important things. You try to be polite to everybody, but that's the most annoying. Trivial requests where the people want action immediately. Not they shouldn't get action, and they do get action. If you're in Mamaroneck Village, the village of Larchmont or the town of Mamaroneck, you get things done very quickly, like your light bulb. If you're in a city, you could wait 6 months for the light bulb on your street to get fixed. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you want to call up and talk to the building department, the supervisor, the administrator, whoever it is, the tax office, somebody will call you back that day.
Do you think so people just aren't appreciative of the fine resources they have here?
Most people are fine, but there are a group of people that just seem to be hysterical sometimes over nothing. But I guess that's life.
Well, it's life for a lot of people, but I guess you're in the hot seat.
Well,
and you hear
I
all
can
this.
remember 9/11 when people were suffering so badly. There was actual nervous, emotional suffering and pain that people were going through. Completely understandable, and you're completely sympathetic. If you get that same kind of reaction because there's a branch hanging on your lawn,
It's out of proportion.
It's out of proportion. So that's what's annoying.
Do you find that this community, I mean, do you talk to your colleagues in other communities, do you find that people here?
They're all the same. People are
it's
all the same. Yeah,
Okay.
they're, parking, traffic. I remember when I first got elected, people kept saying to me, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Weaver Street and Palmer Avenue, on Wednesdays, it gets all backed up for like 15 minutes. They're going to religious education. They're coming out. So I said to the supervisors that when I went to the lunch, I said, what am I going to do? They said, nothing. Do nothing. In 15 minutes, the traffic is going to go away. Don't get hysterical. But the other thing with the internet is people can get one another hysterical over minor things. They can get very, very smart on major things, too. Very, very smart. But little piddly stuff that somebody doesn't like, then you get 10 emails the same thing.
Oh,
you
so
know?
people prompt
They
other people
prompt
to,
other
to
people,
complain.
yeah.
How has the internet been used in a positive way?
Well,
locally?
it was used very well on the positive way on the IKEA thing. When we had we rebuilt the intersection at North Chatsworth and Palmer and Weaver, not Palmer, North Chatsworth, Weaver, Myrtle Boulevard. We had all kinds of people complaining, and then people with ideas, and the ideas made sense, and we fixed the signs. You know,
What a great idea.
So people, you know who thought up the answer to that was Sam Orians. He figured out what kind of a sign we could put up. But if we didn't have that kind of...
So there was sort of a community chat
yes,
online.
There was.
Well, what a great idea. I mean, that's good use of the, you know, of the technology that exists here. I know Ernie Odierno has always been the champion of that.
And he's right, too. He was ahead of us. And Phyllis and I were not ready necessarily to have these robocall things made. We thought it cost a lot of money. You know, like, hello, this is Steve Altieri. Your electricity will be out for 2 more hours. That has turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful thing because we can segregate the neighborhood. Like, if you're going to have dirty water, we know that it's only these 5 blocks. Do not wash tomorrow. You're going to have dirty water. We're cleaning the hydrants. Phyllis and I were kind of like, who needs this? But it's turned out to be a boon. It's been very, very good.
Well, I think sometimes when people know, when they're not blindsided by something and they can plan for it, then they're not as angry. I mean,
we're in touch with Con Ed. They tell us it's going to be 3 days. Well, we can say the Con Ed won't tell us the thing. So that's another thing. They use us to get Con Ed moving. And we have been effective as a town, especially in the north end of the town where the electricity is always going out and the wires are buried. We, the town, have been able to use leverage with Con Ed to get them to fix these transformers. Whereas if they just keep calling by themselves, nothing happens. Con Ed, there's a lot of problems with Con Ed.
Well, do you think that we get preferential treatment in these communities?
No. Con Ed goes to where they can fix the problem that affects the most people. So if you're in a nursing home or a hospital or a school, that's first. Then if you're in an apartment house that has 500 people, they're going to fix that before the apartment house with 300. And as you go to bigger and bigger houses and neighborhoods the houses are farther and farther apart, it's less dense. You're the last one to get fixed.
I see, so that's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Over the time of your tenure as supervisor, how do you think the job has changed? Has it grown?
Well, I think it's to each person. I have taken it as a full-time job. We have Steve Altieri, he's a very able administrator. He does the administrative part of it, but I work every day. And what I look back, I think I've made contacts with both the county, the federal government, the state government. I know the other supervisors. So if we need something, I can call the people on the phone. I've also done a lot of things that some people might call social work. People will call me and tell me that somebody needs to go to college, they need a scholarship, somebody's sick. We're able in my office to put people to the services, which I don't know if that was always done to the extent it's now done. But each supervisor is going to have some gift to use his or her gift to aim toward whatever his strong point is. But I stay on top of everything.
If you could rewrite the job description for supervisor, what would it be? How would you
I
change
wouldn't
it?
rewrite it. I would just say that I think that if it's going to be as many hours as I've put into it, it should be considered a full-time job and not a part-time job. It's paid as a part-time job. So that limits the number of people who can take the job because if you put that much time into it, you have to have enough money from your family or your husband or your wife or something to be able to survive and still do the job. When they started when they hired the administrator, I think the supervisor was making $12,000 a year. And the administrator maybe made $20,000, $25,000. Now the supervisor makes $37,000, but the administrator maybe makes $130,000. It's like out of whack. If you want people to work that hard, and if they don't want you to work that hard, and they just want the administrator to run everything, that's a whole different ballgame. And I don't think that's good because you have to be with the people and see what the people want. If the administrator is listening to the kind of questions I have to listen to, then he's not able to do some of the technical stuff he does.
Preparing for this night, I was looking at actually the voter's guide that the league prepares, and I was looking at the salaries, and there is a wide range of salaries.
Well, let's see, some supervisors make $160,000 a year, but they don't have an administrator.
So it truly is a full-time job for them.
Yeah. So it's how much you want to put into it. But each person is going to do his or her own thing. But I don't think it should be so only pretty wealthy people. I mean, a middle-aged person that's trying to put kids in school could not spend this amount of time if they're going to pay you this amount of money.
You couldn't have a full-time job and do this.
No, you couldn't.
It isn't
no,
like
no,
it
you
isn't
can't.
a few
It's
meetings
gone.
a week.
No,
Yeah.
it's not a few meetings a week.
Yeah. You know, over the years,
It could be, but
it would be
then it's a whole different ball game.
well, in a community that's as demanding as you described.
This community wants what it wants, which is kind of fun. They're not asleep here.
I guess that's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
As long as people stay focused on the important things. Now, you've hosted so many meetings. You've certainly networked with the best and the brightest throughout our region. Of all the people you've met, who do you admire?
Well, this may choke people, but one of the best public servants, natural politicians I know is Nita Lowey. And Nita Lowey and I do not agree on every issue by any means. But if you want action and you want it fast and you want it done right, her staff gets stuff done right away. And she's very serious about it. And if we were to get to geopolitics or bioethics, she and I probably would be on two different sides of the thing. But as far as being helping her community, and you might say, well, Nita Lowey spends a lot of money, she does this, she does. If we want to get the Larchmont Station before everybody else, she'll get the Larchmont Station for you.
Okay.
If you want to call somebody, if we had a kidnapping, I couldn't get through to Hillary Clinton, I couldn't get here, I couldn't get the federal government, I called Nita Lowey's house, her husband picked up the phone, the next thing you know, the FBI is calling. So she's very, I don't know.
Very capable of what she's doing, her constituent services.
She's a natural politician. Of all the people I've worked with, she's the best natural politician. She walks into a room and she smiles, and it's not fake.
Well, she's a lovely person.
Yeah.
I mean, I know her for many years, for sure. But it's interesting to know that she's that effective in her constituent services.
She's as effective as anybody I've ever seen in constituent service.
Valerie, while you're thinking about someone else you admired or abhorred, if you want to share that with
us.
I've never heard you say a bad word about anybody.
No, but I do think Rob Astorino is doing an excellent job. He's organized, he's intelligent, he's a decent, good man, he's thoughtful, and I appreciate him too.
Okay. Val, you get to sit here while numbers start to come in, which is the fun part of this evening, right? All right, I'm going to have you help me read them. We've got 13 districts reporting in the village of Mamaroneck. Oh, is it hard to get the glasses on? Okay.
It's time to quit if you can't see.
With 13 districts reporting, the numbers are for Scott Dufault, 1,089.
Right.
For Tony Ryan, 1,088. For incumbent Luis Santoro, 1,494, and for Mayor Norm Rosenblum, 1,525.
Now, how many districts are there altogether in the village of Mamaroneck?
My recollection was 26, but I sometimes
forget
that.
There are 28 districts in the town of Mamaroneck, including the village of Mamaroneck. I don't know how many Rhinebeck districts there are.
But with 13 districts reporting, I don't think it's a done deal yet.
No, I don't think it's a done deal either.
These are just preliminary numbers, so nobody's calling this yet.
Right.
But we thought you would like to know it.
I am. Now, I'm interested in the Judy Myers, Susanna Keith, and I'm also interested in my friend here, Seth Marcus, whom I think very highly of. He's a young man. I think he's probably in his 40s. He's got 2 kids that go to Murray, my alma mater, my kid's alma mater. And he went to Colgate, and then he went to George Washington University. I had cousins that were the groundskeepers and people at Colgate that then became their offspring became on the board at Colgate. And he went to GW Law School, as did I, as did Paul Winnick. So I would love to see a 2-party system. That's why I hope he wins.
Well, that's right. You know,
and I would like to have a lawyer, because this will be the first time there's no lawyer on the board in 50 years or something. I don't think it's a good idea, no matter how bright the town attorney is. The town attorney is not the 5th council person. You want somebody on there, just like you want people, business acumen, to be thinking, we're passing laws all the time, we're getting mandates, see what, to ask a question to the
Did you find you functioned as a lawyer, as supervisor?
Well, in my mind, just like Paul Winnick, Barry Weprin was a very able lawyer, very able. So was Paul Winnick. Elaine Price was there as a lawyer. Kathy O'Flynn was a lawyer. There's always been Lee Bloom was the general counsel of Lever Brothers. I mean, we've had pretty astute lawyers there.
Right.
And if he doesn't win, you're going to have no lawyer there, unless, of course, he doesn't win, and then in a spirit of cooperation, they appointed him because there'll be an empty spot January 1 when Nancy leaves her chair and becomes a supervisor. There's going to be an empty spot. So I'd love to be able to see that they followed through with some kind of two-party government and have a lawyer on there. And I think this guy would be great.
Do you agree with me on this point? It seems, as an outsider, that the town board has always functioned with either minimal or no partisanship. I mean,
from my time, that's pretty much true. Whatever we get on each other's nerves, we settle on the theory of what we're going to do without any emotional rancor or bad spirit.
Well, I mean, I've seen disagreements, and that's fine. I mean, we don't
very
want
rarely
to
do we really get on each other's nerves.
But I've never seen partisanship.
Not really, no.
Take
really,
its hold
no,
there. I mean,
no.
I don't think anybody's voted as Republican or Democrat.
The thing is, a town is different from a village. A village is kind of like centripetal. It looks inward. It's small. They all know each other. In a town, it's a bigger thing. People don't know they live down the street.
Have you ever been in a situation where you have gotten a mandate from above? I mean, for example, Rob Astorino now is a Republican. No one's ever said to you, look, this is what we want to do?
Never. Now, that may be because I'm the only Republican that's been elected in like 25 years. So I've been very lucky in the sense that I'm not the puppet on a string. I don't have a committee that's bossing me. So I've never had anybody tell me anything.
What are you going to do now with all your free time?
Well, I don't know really. I'm going to...
Available for serving on committees or boards?
I'm going to discern. I'm on the board of the Westchester Holocaust Education Center. I'm also the chairman of the board of a thing called Rosalie Hall Incorporated, which is a single mother and baby place in the Bronx. And I'm trying to merge that into a bigger thing. And when that's done, I'll be happy when that's finished, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But
so we'll be seeing you around the hood.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, grandkids. Huh?
I have 6 grandkids.
And where do they live?
The eldest of whom is a senior at SUNY Albany, and he just got appointed to an internship for his last semester in the New York State Assembly, for which he's going to run around like a page or something.
He'll be a gopher, right?
And he's going to get paid, and they're giving him 15 credits.
Valerie, baby, you could get a job.
Maybe Sandy, Gail, and George can hire me.
You could be their paid intern.
But they've been very helpful. I've made very good friends with Sandy Galiff and with George and with Amy Paulin. These people are all in the Assembly. They're all Democrats because they're only Democrats in the Assembly from around here. And I've had a very good working relationship with them and very good working relationship with the Republicans in the upper part of the county. And I'm sure that Nancy will continue that kind of interaction with the other supervisors because she's a very smart person.
I have a feeling you're going to be in the background letting her know what you think.
No, I don't think, no supervisor wants the last one to tell them what to do.
Oh, okay.
No, I know, I'll be quiet.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to be turned to for mentoring and for help.
So.
And I hope we're going to see you again. You're going to come back and let us know what you're
Thank
doing.
you very, very much for letting me come tonight. And I want to thank the citizens of the town of Mamaroneck for letting me serve as long as I didn't get run out on a rail. I'm losing the time. Do we have new numbers before I leave?
Oh, I think
Let's see.
We do have some new numbers. Okay, I'm going to let you put your glasses on. I'm going to let you read them.
Okay, it says Abby Katz, 4 of 28 reportings, only 4 of 28.
Right. So
Abby Katz has 525, and Seth Marcus has 287. Nancy Seligson, of course, has nobody against her. She's got 571. Phyllis Whitner has 484. Jean Marie Bresch has got no one running against her, 580, and Christina Battaglia, 584. So this doesn't mean much of anything, depending on what districts they are. You know what I mean?
Right, and we don't know that here. So it's still very early. So it's Abby Cass with 525, to Seth Marcus's 287, and Phyllis Whitner 484. So right now it's Abby Cass, Phyllis Whitner in the lead. With Seth Marcus leading. Right.
So thank you, Alice. I want to say something to you. You have been a wonderful asset to the community because I think you've been fair in getting the word out from everybody. I mean, you've been open to all kinds of people to come in here and be a squawk box here.
Well, it's actually been a pleasure.
Yeah,
I
so
have learned a lot, and it's been fun to hold some people
Well,
accountable.
it's very professional, though. You know, if you turn on this local television, sometimes it's very homemade looking. And your show is never very homemade
Well,
looking.
thank you, but as I always say, a hearty thanks to all the folks behind the scenes who make us look as good
That's
as
true.
we do.
We have real pros here.
We have wonderful
Yeah,
crew.
we do.
Valerie, I'm going to
Thank
ask you to
you.
stay with me for
Okay,
just a
all right.
moment. We're going to go to a tape, A Man on the Street. We're going to soon talk about the Mamaroneck Library, so let's go to the Man on the Street tape, talking about the Mamaroneck Library. Valerie, a pleasure as always.
Thank you.
It's very beautiful, it's very modern, and it's got so many resources. It's just a little overwhelming and a little bit maybe stony and a little coolish when you go inside.
I live less than a mile away, and I come here often, and I think it's a great structure. I think the Emblem Theater is a great attraction and feature of the town and the village of Mamaroneck.
The library is great. I mean, I wish that it had more books on the shelves.
I come here about 2 or 3 times a week because I love to read, and they have lots of books for me that I like to read.
Welcome back. As you know, we've just had Town Supervisor Valerie O'Keefe with us. We've had a nice chat about her tenure, her 16 years as supervisor in the town of Mamaroneck. But now we have some news to report, and this is in the 7th District County Legislator race. With 24 of 28 districts reporting, now that's almost done, Judy Myers with 2,911 votes to Susanna Keith's 1,778. It is a very clear margin for Judy Myers at this point. Again, 24 of 28 districts reporting, Judy Myers with 2,911 votes, Susanna Keith with 1,778. It's a very strong lead for Judy Myers, incumbent county legislator in the 7th District. So stay with us. It's going to get more and more interesting as we go on. Now, I told you earlier that I had a wonderful conversation with Jeff Megan a week ago. And Jeff is the president of the Friends of the Library Board. If you haven't been to the Mamaroneck Library yet, whether or not you live in the village of Mamaroneck, I really urge you to visit. It is a spectacular achievement. The new library is twice the size of the old library. In fact, many of the shelves are empty. A great opportunity to grow. I've learned a lot about the library. I know it's not about just books. They've got computer labs and all kinds of resources for seniors, juniors, babies, small kids, young adults. So I hope you go to the library, and even if you don't, I want you to listen to Jeff Megan and learn a little bit about how Mamaroneck accomplished a beautiful new library. Let's go to the tape. Welcome, Jeff. Here we are in the beautiful children's room of the new library.
In the reference part of the children's room.
Okay,
It's
thanks
the
for the
whole floor.
clarification. I am just blown away. I'm always wandering around this building finding new nooks and crannies and wonderful places. When did the library open?
Well, we had a soft opening in June. And so we moved out of 102 Mamaroneck Avenue, where we've been for a couple of years, and sort of got used to the place during the summer. And then in September, we had a gala hard opening.
Okay, so that's September of 2011.
Right.
How long was the library in that location on Mamaroneck Avenue? About 2 years?
Yeah,
I
at least 2 years.
I have to tell you, I have to commend the staff of the library for functioning there. I mean, it was a tough spot. And they did a yeoman's job. I mean, keeping things running. Of course, they couldn't have all of the services and facilities that they would have liked to provide. And I think I hope the community was understanding about that.
Actually, some patrons have told me that they felt it was really cozy.
Well, it was very cozy. It also had a little bit of a moldy smell. But I was very grateful to see them move them here into this new spot.
It was nice for me because my office is in that building.
Oh, how convenient, except
Yes.
you couldn't be bothered all the time, too. There was a lot of planning that went into designing this new building. Now, let's talk for just a moment about the old building, which was built in 1927?
Yes,
Okay. And it was very charming.
still is.
That's right. It's hard to believe. Sometimes I'm sitting in the reference room or the reading area, and I forget that that was the entrance to the old library. The library was pretty spanking wonderful when it was first built, but the last generation, I would say, it was really a struggle to function there. Why? What happened to the old building?
Well, there was an addition in the 60s and an addition in the 80s when the Emlyn was built. And it was hard to match all of those together. I don't think the planning of that was too well, and match the systems, the heating and air conditioning and electrical and so on. And it got to the stage where everything was about to give out. So we either had to redo all of those pieces or redo them and add an addition, which is what we chose to do.
I'd been told that if it were challenged, the library probably in its former state would not have been approved or wouldn't have passed code enforcement.
That's probably true, yeah. That's true with a lot of older buildings, but that's true, yeah.
With that one in particular, and I know the librarians always struggled with leaks. There would be pots of water all over every time it rained, and the air conditioning didn't work, and the heat didn't work so great.
Absolutely.
And
it all would have had to be replaced. And it probably would have cost maybe 60% or 60 to 70% of what we've spent for the whole new anyhow. So that's why we decided to do it all new.
Okay, now the library expanded. First of all, I feel like it's my job to. I'm a taxpayer here too. We bought property adjacent to the old library.
Correct.
Okay, and that was purchased when?
It was before my time on the board, so it had to be probably more than 9 years ago.
So then the planning for the new library was starting way back 10 years ago?
Oh, yes, at least.
Okay, so the property was purchased, and when did the actual planning for the new library begin?
It began when I'm in my 9th year, and it began...
9th year on the board?
Yes, and we have term limits, so this is my last year. We started planning then, and Joan Grott, our former late director, who was really one of the impetuses behind all of this.
She was very well loved and
absolutely.
very sorely missed, of course.
Terrific library and a terrific staff and so on. But it sort of began with her, and she actually, I went back and looked at, and my package when I first came on the board came from Joan, and she called me up and said, you must read this and you must read that and so on. And so she sort of pushed the board, and then we've also had a grant of money for the sole purpose of spending for consulting and pre-planning and so forth. And that allowed us to use private money instead of public money to see where we should go and what we should build. And so we used that money, and we were very lucky to choose a high-quality consultant, which the original consulting firm was the Jonathan Rose Companies in New York. And that's helped us at the very beginning, and they helped us choose the architects and the construction managers and so on. And so thank God for that gift of money. And it started from that, and we had, I can't tell you how many meetings with the Jonathan Rose people. And I also have to mention one person from that who stayed with us and has been our owner's rep ever since the beginning, and that's a woman named Lisa Tilney, who no longer works for Jonathan Rose, but she has stayed with us, and to this day is still, with a few odds and ends that we're dealing with, has been with us, and she's absolutely superb.
We're breaking into the conversation with Jeff Megan because we have final results in the Village of Mamaroneck race. With 15 of 15 districts, that's 15 districts in the Village of Mamaroneck total reporting, the Mayor Norman Rosenblum retains his seat, and Deputy Mayor Lou Santoro retains his seat. The numbers are Norm Rosenblum, 1,733 votes, Lou Santoro, 1,688 votes. Newcomer Scott Dufault, 1,341 votes, and trustee Tony Ryan, who's challenging Norm Rosenblum for mayor, 1,338 votes. It's a very clear victory for the incumbents. At this point, at 10 o'clock, we can report final results in the Village of Mamaroneck. We'll be bringing you final results in the other races just as soon as we have them, although it looks very clear that Judy Myers will retain her seat on the County Board of Legislators. We do not have final results in the town of Mamaroneck yet, but as soon as we have them, we will bring them to you. So let's return to the conversation with Jeff Megan, taped earlier this week. Have we given out more library cards since the library's opened?
Since we opened, we're about 1,000 new patrons.
Isn't that amazing? And are they all from the Village of Mamaroneck?
Well, that's sort of an interesting thing. You can get a card from this library. It used to be you had to live within the village boundaries until one night I was playing paddle tennis and some fellow who lived up on Old White Plains Road said to me, my kid goes to Mamaroneck Avenue School and the other kids there can get a library card, but my kid can't get a library card because I'm in the unincorporated section even though I have a postal address of Mamaroneck.
Oh, I see.
And so I proposed to the board that we expand our card system to 10543. So that's what we use.
It seems fair. Of course, the library system is so integrated with the Westchester library system that, for example, if you ask for a book that our library doesn't own, they put out the request, and within a day or two, they've achieved it from Ossining or Tarrytown.
I just got 2 movies about New Orleans.
Right, it's just amazing. In a perfect world, what would our library be like?
A community center that not only provides books and periodicals and so on, but all sorts of programs and events and anything that has to do with the community. I think it's in them. It's one of the few things that ties everything in the community together. And we, as a result, and it always has been here in Mamaroneck, we try to keep it non-political. This is the one thing that ties the whole place together. And that's what we're shooting for.
Do you see more usage of it by people who've never been here before? You said you've given out 1,000 library cards.
Absolutely.
And people
Absolutely.
What do you have to say to people who say to you or to me, why do we need a library? I mean, I don't go there, I don't need it, it just seems a complete waste of money.
Well, I think it's pretty silly because, first of all, almost every community in the country has a library. And if almost every community in the country has a library,
a good reason.
You know, there must be a good reason to have them. And
well, I've had people say to me, and not with any malice, but just with puzzlement, I never go there. And people who are longtime Mamaroneck residents and devoted to the community, it's not like they're looking to go elsewhere. But why all that money? Why should we do that?
Because it is a community center. Why have sewers? Why have water
Well, you see, but they
lines?
can justify that. I mean, that's health related.
Well, this relates to your mind. This is a flushing of the mind.
I don't think we want that
Yeah,
analogy.
well, that's not a good
It's
analogy.
flawed.
But in any event, you live in a community and you need to be part of the community. And that's what we're providing, a community center. That's why we put such an emphasis in our new community room downstairs. It's, you know, more than doubled in size. It's got all the technological stuff in it. It's open to the public. I mean, all kinds of outfits want to use it. One of our first programs, which was just a couple of weeks ago, was down there, and it was by the direct descendants of the Heathcotes. Mm-hmm. And a brother and sister, and they came from England, and they gave this program, which was absolutely wonderful. The sister gave the American Heathcote background, and Caleb, how he became mayor of New York City, and so on, and her brother gave the English background, and how Caleb came here because his brother stole his fiancée. Now, they were both mayors. One was Lord Mayor of London, and the other was mayor of New York City. But great program for the community.
Right, and who knew?
Right.
People here that live don't necessarily know about the history, so the library has a lot of historical
And that's right. And we
opportunities.
made the Historical Society part of the library.
Okay.
And they have their own room in the library.
Now, what's the relationship between the library and our schools?
Well, we try to get it as close as possible. And we run a teacher program in the afternoon, so kids can come here directly from school. We have made
Well, let me just back up for a sec. There's a teacher in the library?
Yeah, we have a teacher program in the library.
So any weekday afternoon, a child can come and whatever they're studying, they need help with the history,
Right.
English, and they can
Absolutely.
avail themselves of that.
Absolutely.
No cost to the parents.
Correct.
Isn't that amazing? And is that well taken advantage of?
Absolutely. And in designing this library, we now have not only, we had a children's room before, which was at the lower level near the Emlyn lobby. The children's room is now not a room, but an entire floor, which is where we are now. But we now have an entire room for the youth, that's teenagers,
Okay.
down on that lower level. And
Why do we separate them?
well, first of all, the children's library is absolutely more secure now. You have to come in through the front door, you have to take the elevator up, and and we have it on the second floor, so everybody's all in one place. The youth, we have them so you can enter from Library Lane,
They can park their bikes outside.
They can park their bikes out there. It's a completely different entrance. They, so they can feel like, hey, this is our space.
Now, I noticed that the kids' library has a view of the harbor.
Yes.
Are adults allowed to come up and look?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There are always adults up here. I told you before, there are a lot of grandparents that bring kids up to this children's room.
Yes. Now, the library also has a coffee bar.
It does.
Now, I assume that all the soliciting of ideas led to creating something like that because there's useful space in that library and it's devoted to a little bar with coffee.
We had, I can't tell you how many hours of discussions about how big or small or what or whether to about the coffee. So what you see is sort of a compromise, and what you have a little counter there that overlooks the outdoor patio, and that's so people can sit at the counter and read and have a cup of coffee.
You know, Jeff, I think there are some people who think that libraries are about books, and as we touched on before, there's a big revolution going on. Call it a digital revolution. I don't want to be, trite about it, but libraries aren't just about books anymore.
That's correct.
What does your library card buy you?
That's a good question. I mean, you don't even have to have a library card to walk in this place and sit down and use the periodicals and read the newspaper and so on.
And use the Wi-Fi.
And use the Wi-Fi, absolutely. So, or sign up for the computer, but we try to provide as much of those services as possible, and we try to do programs. And a lot of the programs at the moment are children's programs, so naturally towards that. We have Roots and Shoots, and the Girl Scouts came to the board, our last week's board meeting, and they're going to create a mural for the children's room and so on. But one of the things I'd like to see in the future is many more programs that the library runs for all sorts of diverse types of things.
Now, all those kinds of programming require money. How is the library funded?
The library funded, this is an unusual library. I think there are only 2 in the county. Larchmont Library, for example, because we're in a tri-community area with Mamaroneck High School and Rhinex School. Larchmont Library has to go to the Larchmont Village Board and the Mamaroneck Town Council with their budget and ask them for money to provide the budget. In the early 90s, this library, with the help of Susie Oppenheimer, became a library district created by the New York State Legislature. So we are like a separate school district, or a separate sewer district.
Let's say
but
school district.
So therefore we're our own entity. We have to have our board elected, whereas in other communities they're appointed. Which also removes us from those political boards. And we have to have our budget passed like a school district.
So it's voted on separately?
Absolutely.
And when is the library budget vote?
This year it will be on December 14th. It's usually within the first 2 weeks of December.
And you must live within the boundaries of the village of Mamaroneck
Correct.
to vote for that
Correct.
budget. Has the library ever had difficulty having a budget approved?
Not since I've been on the board.
Okay,
I mean, we have people who are concerned about taxes.
Well,
and,
everybody's concerned about taxes,
And
for sure.
our tax is shows as a separate tax. It's collected by the village, but it shows on your village tax bill as a separate tax.
But that's why I revert to the question, what are we getting for our tax dollars spent for
You're
our...
getting a community center.
Okay.
And where else is there a community center in the village?
If somebody had a constituent group that wanted to meet here, I mean, senior citizens have their senior centers, but we'll say somebody says, I'd like to have a book club that meets here, or I have a knitting group, or whatever. Could they utilize the library?
Absolutely, we'd love it.
How would somebody approach, who would they approach?
Well, they call the desk, first of all, and they'll put them in the right direction.
Okay, so they
And we
talk
have
with
policies on it, and we have a combined, coming up in a couple of weeks, it's a holiday arts fair, crafts fair, sponsored by the library and the Mamaroneck Arts Council. So that's...
Is that a fundraiser for the library?
And I think the League of Women Voters had something here too.
Had a program
meeting.
one night,
Yes, had a program here one night.
So you can be a group, a dedicated group in the community, or just have your own little group that might want to use the community room or another room?
We have another room down, a smaller room in the lower level, that if you wanted to use the smaller room.
So there are lots of opportunities here, even when the library's closed? Or must
Even when the library's closed. A lot of those are evening meetings.
Okay.
And actually, because the community room is at the end of the hallway of the shared lobby with the Emlyn, there's another major entrance in, and of course, a lot of the Emlyn functions are in the evening as well.
Welcome back. As you may have heard before, we have final results in the Village of Mamaroneck race with all 15 districts reporting. Mayor Norm Rosenblum has bested challenger Tony Ryan. Norm Rosenblum with final numbers that I have. Now, these won't be the final numbers at the end of the evening, I'm sure, but they are final for now. 1,733 votes to Tony Ryan's 1,338 votes. Lou Santoro, deputy mayor, has retained his seat, 1,688 votes to 1,341 votes. Now, we're waiting. We understand that the incumbent mayor and trustee are on their way into the studio, and they're going to be joining us very soon. We also have tapes of their acceptance speeches, which we're going to be bringing to you very soon. We do have some new results in the town of Mamaroneck. Now, these are not final results. 11 of 28 districts reporting. Abby Katz with 936 votes, Phyllis Whitner with 882 votes, and Seth Marcus with 506 votes. Right now, it looks like newcomer Abby Katz is in the lead. Phyllis Whitner, incumbent, looks like she will retain her seat. Seth Marcus right now is lagging behind. Again, this is only 11 of 28 districts, so we're not going to call it just yet. Now, in case you wanted to know, Nancy Seligson, who is running unopposed for town supervisor, has 1,016 votes. Jean Marie Brescia, Justice, also an incumbent, with 1,037 votes, and Christina Battaglia, 1,035 votes. Don't ask me why people do that, but I guess they vote for certain people and don't vote for others. But we should have results from that very, very soon. In the meantime, we want to bring you the acceptance speeches from the Republican incumbent candidates in the Village of Mamaroneck, Mayor Norm Rosenblum and Deputy Mayor Lou Santoro.
This is a win not for Lou Santoro or Norm Rosenblum. This is a win for the Village of Mamaroneck. And this win is based on family. It's based on what's good for the Village of Mamaroneck. It is no longer going to be popular to have your own political agendas. We will continue the next 2 years to do what we did the past 2 years. And hopefully we will not be number 60 in the CNN report. We will be number 1. Okay, because the village is number 1, and we're number 1 for one reason: the people that live here and love here, and because they are the volunteers, and the volunteers is what the Village of Mamaroneck is about, not the elected officials. It's the people that live in the Village of Mamaroneck make this place great. Thank you.
I'm speechless as usual, but like I always said to Norman and everybody here, our immediate family, everybody's family, the residents came out today and confirmed the job that Norman and I have been doing for the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to get it better and make the Village of Mamaroneck better for all the residents. Thank you. Good job, man.
Welcome back. Those were the acceptance speeches by our incumbent mayor and deputy mayor. Now, I'm going to recap the results that we have. We've not heard anything further on the county legislators race in the 7th district. It looked like Judy Myers had a very, very strong lead with 2,911 votes to Susanna Keith's 1,778 votes. And that was with 24 of 28 districts reporting. And that was in Rhinebeck and the town of Mamaroneck. That's not close enough for us to call it, and we haven't heard anything more on that yet. We are awaiting the arrival of the newly re-elected mayor and deputy mayor in the Village of Mamaroneck, and while we're awaiting them, we're going to go back to the conversation that I taped earlier with the board, Friends of the Library Board President Jeff Megan. He was talking about our beautiful new library and the many services that we now have there. So if you've been watching it, I urge you, go to the library soon. It's a magnificent accomplishment in the Village of Mamaroneck. I don't know what our neighboring libraries are doing, but I'm sure they're looking at Mamaroneck and saying we're going to have to do some prettying up to compete with them. The library certainly has many, many services, and perhaps one day we'll be able to, I don't know, broadcast from the library. There used to be an LMC-TV studio in the library. It's now down the street at the separate LMC-TV building. So in case you've just joined us, it looks like the race in the village of Mamaroneck is over. And the incumbents have retained their seats. Now let's go back to the conversation taped earlier with Jeff Megan. I know you want to do a lot of programs. One of the programs, maybe I'm using the wrong word, that has always enthralled me has been the continuous book sale at the library. Now, in the old library, there was the Baxter room, which wasn't a great room, but it was piled high with books, and we had a volunteer who staffed that. Do we have the community book sale back again?
We have a whole separate room. On the lower level, you can walk in there, and the lights are automatic. They go on, and you can...
So you don't have to worry for somebody being there. If it looks dark, you can still walk.
There's a sign on, this row of books costs $2. These cost $1. These cost $3. And you take those books and you go upstairs and you pay your money.
Now, I'm assuming that the library doesn't do that just because it was popular, but it also must be a significant source of revenue for the library.
It's a source of revenue. I don't know if it's significant, but you know, we use it for the little things that we'd like to do. For example, I think the staff is going to have a holiday party, so we contribute some money out of that fund so that the staff can have a holiday party.
I mean, I've always thought it was a great idea. I mean, pay $1 or $2 for a book. I'd probably pay it in overdue fines anyway, and have the book, and then give it back to the library to resell.
Absolutely.
So if people have books they'd like to donate, and everybody seems to have books they'd like to donate, what do they do?
Just bring them to the desk.
To the desk, and they'll take them, and they'll give you a receipt for them too, I believe.
Sure,
right?
if you'd like it.
If you'd like that. Now, do you think that the digital revolution is affecting that continuous book sale?
No.
You don't see that
I
stemming
don't see
at
that
all?
at all. People still, you know, I mean, yes, we're in a changing world, but I go there a lot on weekends, and I can't tell you how many people are down there, and they still want a hardcover book. And I myself am one of them. I said, oh, well, that book, you know, and I pulled it off the shelf, and I went upstairs, paid my $2, and I got it at home, and I'll get a chance to read it soon.
You get to read it, and then you'll turn it back, and it'll sell.
I turn it right back. Fortunately,
it's a good gig.
Where I work, I don't have to cross a road, and where I live, I cross one road. I'm a half a block from here.
Does the business community support the library in any way here? I ask you that while you're thinking about the answer, because we were talking about the really positive changes in the village of Mamaroneck over the last few years and how vital the downtown is. There are parties throughout the summer. The street is closed down, and there are festivals. The restaurants are just fabulous, as we all know.
Right.
I mean, they're not fast food restaurants. Aside from 5 pizza stores, at least, we have some really, really great restaurants that are reasonably priced, and most have outdoor cafes, so when the weather's nice, you can eat outside. And I just wondered if that community and the business community participates in the library in any meaningful way.
Not yet. That's a good idea. I mean, occasionally we have people, I know I've been to a couple of functions here where Dawn of Cafe Mozart has helped out. I think the growth of the avenue and the closing down several evenings during the summer, and with our, remember I mentioned before, our physical beacon of the library, so you could see it from the avenue, has brought a lot of people to recognize, hey, not only is Mamaroneck good, but they got this brand new library going up too. So, yes, from that point. But I don't see yet, and maybe that's one of our goals, to have specific businesses help us.
Use all the help you can get, I would think. But I would think things like the Chamber of Commerce are probably looking for places to meet, and this might be a great place for them to
absolutely. We want to promote use of the library. I mean, that's why we built it. We didn't build it just so people can come in and read the newspaper.
You know, Jeff, in the minute or two we have left, this is such a spectacular achievement. If I say to everybody in the community, if you haven't seen it, come. You will be blown away. And I just watch people's faces. Sometimes I do come and have a cup of coffee and use my iPad, and I watch people come in, and I've heard over and over again people say, wow, how long has this been here?
1927.
Right, but this building especially is a beacon. Nothing stands still. What are the challenges that we must face as we continually evolve?
Challenges for the library?
For the library, yeah.
To keep remaining flexible with our fast-using technology. So if things change, and that's how we try to design the building, so we can, our rooms and our systems and so on can be flexible to keep up with all of that. Because if we don't, then we're going to be, you know, an elephant, and everybody else is going to be using something different.
Now, I've been impressed with the knowledge of the reference librarians as far as technology and how to access even digital sources that the library has. Because a lot of people think, well, I have an e-reader now, so I have to buy books. That's not the case, is it?
That's correct.
Okay, so people need to know how to access the library's digital database and that it has a digital database.
We've increased our website and the information we have on our website. We put our budget on the website, so we're constantly putting new things on the website. And curiously, the reference desk, by the way, is right next to our row of tables with all of our computers too. So that's the
And the library has computer classes as well for people who are who need them.
But like us.
Well, we all need help. There's no question about it. But to get back to the question about digital books, I didn't know that the library had digital books until fairly recently, and that I could access them and borrow them, much as I would a hardcover book, and borrow them and read them on my iPad or Kindle or whatever device I might be using. And I guess I'd pay overdue fines if I kept them too long, as I always do, but hey, you know, the library's got to live.
That's true.
And they're depending on me for those fines, right?
Again, I don't know if that's our major source of income, but...
my husband would tell you that it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeff, thanks so much for being my guest. It has been a pleasure to be here, spend this much time in the library, and I look forward to seeing you here again.
Thank you.
Welcome back. If you see me now, you know I'm joined by two very happy, victorious candidates from the village of Mamaroneck, Mayor Norm Rosenblum and Deputy Mayor Lou Santoro. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back for the second time.
Yes, it's a pleasure. So you guys look so relaxed. I mean, this night went pretty fast from our point of view. How did it seem from yours?
Actually, it did, compared to last year when it was a debacle with everybody, not just the local race. Obviously, they handled the problems with the voting machine, which is great. I myself, when I went in to vote, it was just very quick, no problems.
No problems. The machines weren't getting stuck.
Which bodes well for people to go to vote.
That was the problem last time, right? The paper was getting stuck in the machines.
And jammed, and people left. A lot of people didn't vote.
It seemed more that the people who were working the polls had a better understanding. I think they trained them better this time around.
Oh, good.
They did some training classes, and they did some test runs during the course of the summer, and they brought the people in. And it worked. I think I was in and out in less than 3 minutes.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad.
Really
well, I was just actually looking for numbers from 2 years ago, and it seems like turnout's a little low tonight. Well, compared to 2 years ago.
It's approximately the same numbers that we won by. Last time we won approximately by 400 votes, and I believe it's just about similar to this one. I won by 390. Louis won by 368. We won in 13 of the 15 districts. One, I think, was less than 10 votes, and the other one was by 70 votes. It's very satisfying to, well, first, actually, before we even talk about the numbers, I congratulate anyone and all the candidates that ran in this race. It's not easy to put your name out in public. Half the people are going to like you, the other half not. But I think this is, excuse me, this is a confirmation and affirmation of the policies that we instituted 2 years ago. Mainly, I would start out that we opened up the board meetings, and the democratic process is alive and well in the village of Mamaroneck. Whether you agree or disagree on any particular subject, that will continue under Lou's and mine administration, that people are welcome. In fact, I encourage everybody to come to the board meetings.
Do you find that there is a good turnout now? I mean, everybody worried that when we started televising board meetings that people would stay home rather than come in. I mean, if you have something to say, obviously you're not doing that from home. So,
well, a lot of people come in when they see a subject and they want to do it. Ironically, I believe that one of the most watched programs in the village of Mamaroneck, ironically, is LMC-TV and the village board meetings. Walking around and just throughout the 2 years, people keep telling us, oh, I watched this meeting and I can't believe that happened, this happened, and so on. But it shows people are interested.
Well, you know what's also very interesting? All 4 candidates in the village, 2 mayoral candidates, 2 trustee candidates, are all lifetime village
Correct.
residents and people who grew up in the village, as you all have, and
Right.
either were away for a little while, came back, but people who are
their
native,
families, yeah.
I don't know how we say that, Mamaroneckians. I don't know if that's a real word. And I thought that was really very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think the opposite to that position is that all the policies that we've instituted are based on one thing. Although we're the elected officials and the top administrative or elected officials, the key to the Village of Mamaroneck, as a lifelong third-generation person, I firmly believe this, and I've said this over and over again, is that the Village of Mamaroneck is great because of its residents and its volunteers, whether it be LMC-TV, Harborline Conservancy,
The firehouse.
the firehouse, or whatever it is.
You've probably been talking for a long time.
Right.
It's truly remarkable, and certainly in the last few years, we've seen some pretty remarkable things happening in our downtown. And I often wondered, have we invited all of these thriving and flourishing restaurants to join us, or have they found out about us and come on their own volition?
The one restaurant that opened in the village about a year and a half ago, the gentleman, when Norm and I went to the grand opening, he said that he did like a
Market study.
market study, and he went from Greenwich to Bronxville and everything in between. And it came from Mamaroneck, everything from Mamaroneck.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I guess now there's so much more information available. Technology, as we were talking about before, has changed everything. Years ago, when I first moved here 30 years ago, there was talk about needing a mall manager and having people go out and solicit businesses to come to the village. I'm sure you remember that, Norm. You probably were part of that conversation. And now, because of the information that's available, people who are citing a restaurant or another business can have that information at their fingertips. And see what the life of a community is.
We talked to a gentleman last night. He just purchased the stores across from the Regatta on Mamaroneck Avenue. There's six or seven stores. And he's going to go in and renovate all those stores and open up small retail businesses.
And have a public park.
He's going to have a public park where
Which
you
is
can
great.
walk through to the Emlyn and to the library, you know?
Isn't that lovely?
And, you know, he drove around, he saw it, and, you know, he's producing on it now.
But you also can't rest on your laurels. Again, one of the philosophies I have that we're going to push is that you must start operating the Village of Mamaroneck in more of a business-like manner, because the fact of the matter truly is that people will not be able to stay in the Village of Mamaroneck. We are in the highest taxed area in the United States, and unfortunately our revenue is based on a real estate-based tax.
Do you talk about the entire Westchester County or the Village of Mamaroneck?
No, the Village of Mamaroneck, I think, has to look out for itself, whether it be flooding. The perfect parallel to that is Army Corps of Engineers has a study. This is the third or fourth study. They spent $18 million, and until the Village of Mamaroneck instituted a program under Lou and I, that we started $100,000 in the budget to take silt. People say silt dredge. Meanwhile, we took it out of the river, and it helped prevent probably 3 or 4 flood situations. Unfortunately,
well, there's self-help, of course.
Absolutely, you have to do it.
It
You
is
can't depend.
important.
Yes.
Right.
No, but I want to back up for a sec, because you were talking about taxes and the very severe tax burden that people in our
Westchester
communities
County,
have.
yes.
So, was your point that everyone in Westchester is severely taxed, or do you find that the Village of Mamaroneck?
No, everyone in
is
this entire area.
higher?
Westchester County is the highest tax area in the country. But very honestly, my loyalty and goals are for the Village of Mamaroneck. Let everyone else take care of themselves. It sounds a little cold, but the fact of the matter also is that when you hear people talking from the Chamber of Commerce, from Yonkers or Harrison or Rye, everybody wants to know what's happening in the Village of Mamaroneck. And I've been told by people in government, administrators in other areas, that what's the Village of Mamaroneck doing? You're in a terrible financial, economic situation in this area. Yet Mamaroneck is the number one, and people come through other villages and towns just to come to the Village of
Well, the
Mamaroneck.
vitality is just unparalleled,
Right.
and we've seen this over the last, 10 years. We've seen it grow. There was concern some time ago about fast food restaurants. I remember those concerns, and that we were going to change the complexion of the village
Right.
for the worse, not the better. And in fact, what we have are wonderful restaurants.
Correct.
They're beautiful. The money that's
Well,
these
the
people-
vitality on the
it's-
street, the cafes, and of course, having the party nights in the
Right.
summer has been just great.
Right.
And the
Just great.
Halloween spectacular we had 2 weeks ago.
But again, I really want to get back, because I'm going to concentrate on this. You have to, the trick is that looking for revenue other than real estate-based taxes, using the assets you have, whether it be Harbor Island, Mamaroneck Avenue,
But how do we
but
balance
you do
that,
it, you
Norm?
balance it out without changing the
I mean,
character of the
that
village
was
of Mamaroneck.
exactly my point, because when we invite more businesses in or more development in, they want something back. People are very concerned about access to the waterfront and maintaining the public access that we now have. It's not perfect, but it's better than most communities around
Oh,
here.
absolutely. I think it's unique. The village of Mamaroneck, between the Bronx border, New York City, and Greenwich, Connecticut, we are the only open access to the waterfront, and I will champion to remain that way. It doesn't mean that you can't. I think 30 years ago, they were talking about a chart house. I think that was a little big. I was actually against the chart house because it's too big. But you do have room down there for potential for a restaurant where that original site was, which is not the pavilion, by the way, as soon as you come in where the bait shop is. These are situations, whether it be that, and you don't say you jam it through, but at least bring it up and discuss it. That's the difference, I believe, between our opponents and Lou and myself, that by also opening up the democratic process of the board meetings, is you bring up subjects to discuss and talk about it. And you don't discuss it by yourselves in the back room, because the important input is from the village and the people that live here.
Have anybody, because you've had an open policy, or more open than you think it has been in the past, has anyone come forward with an idea that you have embraced?
Absolutely. The one that, whether it be controversial or not, I believe that one of the keys to the future of the village of Mamaroneck is parking. To be specious and say that you don't need parking spaces, because I counted 173 spaces, and you ask, "Go what time?" 11:30 at night. That's still ridiculous. Go to Mamaroneck on a Tuesday night with the free movies. Go on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday or Sunday night, and you can't find a space between 5 or 6 and almost 9 to 10 o'clock at night. And people have told me, "Norman, it's a great place. I want to live here. I want to drive and everything else, but I
Can't park.
40 minutes for parking space. I'm going to leave." We had presentations, and this is a basic premise, whether it be a restaurant or a tier parking or something that you look at. You take advantage of what you have. People want to come to the village of Mamaroneck. You don't give it away. You sell what you have. And let me just, push this point, because whether you talk about that, it's village-owned property. You don't give that property up, because once you give it up, you never get it back again.
Right.
So people will come in, you have them make a proposal with the specifications. I'll use the parking as an example. They build it, they operate it, we get a piece of the action, and after 20 years, you own it.
Well, I think what concerns me, and what I think is expressed by other people, is that once you let someone in, things sometimes morph into something different than you anticipated. And the perfect example I will cite, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, is Sport Time. Sport Time has been a wonderful revenue source for the village. They've revised the tennis program, and I think most people have been pretty happy with it. I hear both positive and negative, but by and large more positive. But now, of course, they would like a larger footprint than I think people originally envisioned them having in Harbor Island.
That idea came up from one of the committees. The original RFP was to stay where they are. The village asked them at that time, the board asked them to move behind a treatment plant.
And the irony there is that
They were contented by building what they had
But what
permission
they
to.
want is a larger
well, that's
structure
what they
than
want. Doesn't mean they have to get it.
Well, but see, that's exactly where people are unsettled. Because once this entity, which has been good for the village, is now here, now it seems as if they're in the driver's seat. And I think people want to feel, oh no, that there's somebody controlling what they
Well, actually, I think the village has the upper hand. This has been going on for 10 years, and they haven't built because of that reason.
Well, there've been
And
so
it's not
many
their
things.
fault. And I'll tell you specifically what it was. The previous administration had a chance to actually push for what they wanted. There was a termination clause in the contract that they could have terminated that agreement. The village, for whatever reason, and I do contracts for a living. I've done it for 25 years. And that's how you control it, by the way. Whatever you have in a contract, it's black and white, controls it, not what someone wants. They gave that right up. Now, what's happening, it's coming to 10 years, is getting to the point where the bubble will no longer be viable. And they'll spend approximately $500,000 to replace that bubble. Once that's done, I doubt very much if they move. And everyone in the village, I believe, wants to open up the vista. And there's enough fields to do it. It's controversial. You have 2 or 3 different choices to do it. But it's still up to the village what they want to do.
Well, there
So
were
you
other
discuss it.
encumbrances, weren't there? Easements that the county has.
Well, that comes up, that's
and
their
that,
problem
and
to do
citing
it.
it
That's
was
correct.
was complicated.
But
More-
you can still build over it.
You can still
I
build
understand.
over it. You just can't build a permanent structure over it. You know, you can put a tennis
see.
court over it, or you can put
I see,
a
something
building
that's
up
more
with no
easily
sides and a
accessed.
roof. So if something should happen to that pipe, that counties has access to get to it.
But not to fall into the trap of, us discussing specifics. The real key is that this has been going on for 10 years. And that's exactly whether it was the Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht Club, which we ran on 2 years ago. I can honestly say that there are very few elected officials that ran on a platform that completed in their first term everything they ran on. And we've done it. We've settled lawsuits. We've opened up the board meetings. And the budget process has been the lowest in many years.
You're talking about the tax increase.
Yes.
It's
Right.
the lowest.
Yeah.
0.35%, and instead of 4.58, it could have been 1.33.
But what do you say to people who say, well, but you've invaded the surplus to achieve that?
That's a specious argument. As a matter of fact, when we did this, we checked this with our bond counsel. The bond counsel said that you are well within your percentage, and we went from approximately 3 million to 6 million. So we didn't do it. And the real question is, do you think that the government knows better what to do with the taxpayers' money or the taxpayer? It's my basic premise that I'd rather have the taxpayers spend their own money instead of us saving
Well, but
it.
what happens when we get to a point where the surplus is lower than what is considered the appropriate limit? I think now it has to be between 10 and 15%.
That's recommended. Yeah.
That's recommended.
And we're at
That's
22.9
and the
right now.
surplus is the rainy day fund,
Right.
right? Every home, but every home should
That's
have.
have money
Yeah, that's-
available.
yeah,
You can
right.
always bond if you have to. But however, we are at that point where we're way beyond that. And if with good fiscal planning, you can continue to do that and keep the tax rate down. The difference between our proposal of 1.33 and 4.58, that 3% may be the very factor that can keep someone in their home. And it's a very key because that determines, excuse me again, that determines are you going to keep the diversity in the village of Mamaroneck, which is one of the key things to the village. That's what our greatest strength is, our diversity.
I'm going to let you take a sip of water because we have some more numbers to report.
Okay.
This is actually the fun part. You get to sit
Okay.
here as they come in.
right.
Valerie was with me earlier when the numbers started to come in. And this is in the town of Mamaroneck with 26 of 28 districts reporting. It looks like the lead vote getter is newcomer Abby Katz, making her first bid for a seat on the town council with 2,626 votes. Second high vote getter is Phyllis Whitner, incumbent, with 2,410 votes. And it looks like Seth Marcus will probably not prevail this time around with 1,684 votes. This is with 26 of 28 districts reporting. So we have some new numbers in the county legislator race. Judy Myers with 3,197 votes to newcomer Susanna Keith's numbers 2,020 votes, and that's with 31 of 34 districts reporting. I don't know that we can call it yet, but it looks like it's a very
close,
strong
right.
lead for
Numbers speak for
the
themselves,
incumbent, right, for Judy Myers. So we're going to get those numbers up on the screen very soon as we continue our conversation with the newly re-elected mayor and deputy mayor in the village of Mamaroneck. Now, I feel I have to represent people in the village of Mamaroneck on this issue. Having the restaurants in the village is just great and everybody's very happy. But one restaurant that perplexes people is Molly Spillane's. I see you looking a little sheepish there, Lou. Now, I remember when I sat on the village planning board, we always instituted, I won't call it a curfew, but operating hours. And it was different on the weekends than on weeknights. And that was always accepted as part of the site plan approval process. What is different about Molly Spillane's? Why do they not have limited hours?
They do. As a matter of fact, those hours not only are limited by the planning board and a special permit, which was just renewed, by the way, it's also determined by the state liquor authority and New York state law. The problem with Molly Spillane's is its popularity. It's one of the best, most popular restaurants in the village of Mamaroneck. And again, the problem is that you have mixed use. You have an as of right as a commercial entity of the restaurant, and yet you have the regatta next door, and there are a few
Right, it is mixed use,
individuals
meaning
do
that
it.
you have a commercial district and a residential
Correct,
district.
correct.
I understand that. What are the limits on their hours? When do they have to close?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe that there's a limit when a certain amount of time you can serve liquor. Theoretically, you can stay open 24 hours if you want to, according to New York state law. I think the problem that happened is during certain times, there probably may have been noise violations or not. But the fact of the matter is that when they went through the renewal for their special permit, which is an as of right, and with certain conditions, they went before the ZBA, and the ZBA took all accounts under consideration, including the residents of the Regatta and the people that came in, including Mike Hines, who I say is very dedicated to the Village of Mamaroneck also. Not only is a businessman, but supporting
And he's the
other
owner of
things.
Molly Splains.
And he's the owner of Molly Splains, and they gave it to him. So I mean,
They
you got to
gave
care for
him-
the village. They gave him the
Special
special
permit, but
permit.
you
They gave him a
cannot-
special
Again.
permit, but it doesn't limit the hours.
It limits the hours for his music and certain
Right.
conditions. You cannot limit hours of operation other than a 24-hour operation. Like McDonald's is a 24-hour operation, they need a special permit. The State Liquor Authority says no more liquor after 4 a.m., so
Right.
that's
4
what it
a.m.
says.
But I remember imposing a restriction of hours of something like 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning for a restaurant on the weekend, and maybe 11 o'clock
For
on
music or entertainment, you can
Right.
do that, but for hours of operation, you can't do that.
Okay. Well, I think maybe the difference here is the outdoor patio, and that's
And
caused him a great deal of
That's
stress.
supposed to be, I think, 11 or 12 o'clock, or 1 o'clock, and he does it usually at 11 o'clock. But, you know, our building department, our code enforcement, and our police department are on the situation. We get a report every 2 weeks if there's anything going on.
I know
In
it's
fact, we
caused a
just
lot
got
of
one.
stress
Yeah.
to the,
Right.
to
We
the
just got a
people in the
report,
Regatta.
for-
And why should, I mean, we want him to flourish. We want him
Right,
to,
right.
Absolutely.
to do well.
You have to balance it out.
You have to.
But we have
And
to
the,
take into
and the village
consideration
board
that-
must be very careful not to interfere with one of the land use boards, which is ZBA is one of them. If the ZBA goes through it and they take all the testimony and they determine that, in fact, he's within his rights and as of rights, and that's just what happened to him. I think that Molly Splains is one of the keystones in the success of the Village of Mamaroneck, one of many restaurants. To pick on him would be
No,
akin
no,
to
it's
spot
not
zoning.
picking on him. It's
No, I'm not
just-
saying you are, but it's saying
I'm
you
just
have
saying
to
that
treat.
I hear complaints about that restaurant. I mean, people
he's a-
talk to me. Why?
Right.
But I hear complaints about that. It's not that they don't like the restaurant, but people who live there are encumbered by this.
It's more of a, a sports board. There is no other places in Mamaroneck.
I don't think
so-
anybody minds
that's
that,
where-
and that's
right,
great.
so I
It's the
think that's-
late hours and the noise on the street.
Well, I tell you, we had a meeting, they went for their special permit this year, it took 4 months, because the ZBA, they did their homework, they listened to the residents, they were out there, I think, with sound meters, they went through the whole thing with them, and we get a report.
Well, I just share
like I
it,
said,
share
yeah.
it with you. One thing that surprised me, there are certain things that were not talked about in this campaign. Can you cite anything that you think should have been raised as an issue that people should be talking about, planning for?
I think the majority of the important issues were taken up. I think that they will be continued. There was an action taken by the board on the last work session, and it will be continued, and that was the majority of the board voted down awarding a contract for the removal of the road to nowhere. I personally found it egregious, but again, this is going to be part of the democratic process. I'm sure it will be continued. I will not be there Monday. I'm going to be out of state, but Deputy Mayor Santora will be leading the
Be in charge.
discussion.
Well,
Yeah.
one issue that I'm sure is looming is Hampshire Golf Course. It's operating now as a golf course,
Mm-hmm.
but we understand that there are other plans in the works.
Well, I don't think they actually came and spoke before the board. They said that they have no specific plans, but if you read between the lines, they may at least entertain some construction where they would maintain as a golf course and obviously put some kind of housing up. That remains to be seen. There is nothing before the planning board or the ZBA. No permits have been requested. But on a
Is it-
pragmatic and realistic
Right.
basis, one can assume that the statement was made if you put $15 million investment into a property and you only made $100,000, you're going to look for a higher
Another means,
investment,
right.
which is my interpretation, is only mine, is that you would look for some type of development. This, however, is not for discussion just for Hampshire Country Club. This will come under zoning, it would come under your master plan, it would come under the LWRP, and a lot of other
Well, in other
things
words,
that you look at.
it will be considered by many boards when it does
Right.
finally come forward as a proposal.
Right.
But I guess my question is, what is the village doing to prepare for that eventuality?
The village is going through its master plan and the comprehensive plan, I should say, and the LWRP. That will be taken up, not just Hampshire Country Club, but the Hampshire Country, which is the largest undeveloped area, and all other sites. including, believe it or not, all village parks other than Harbor Island, because they are not parks, which I found incredible. They are not considered parkland legally. They are village parks. Realistically, they'll never be developed. But you have the next largest park, which is Florence Park. That should be actually parkland as far as
It
I'm
should be
concerned.
preserved
And
and
that's part of
protected.
it. You should also look at the school grounds.
The-
The Rhinebeck district is now going to look to knock down
The old barn.
the old barn and the building on the Post Road, which, you know, if you want to fix it up, probably cost you a couple of $1 million. Taxpayers wouldn't go for it. But yet, now you're going to have even a larger open space. So that's the things you have to look at.
Okay, so
And
lots
that
of
will
things
be
to look
done.
at.
The
One
board did
last-
was the moratorium, so that's what action the village has taken, you know, I think maybe 2 or 3 months ago. There's no building
Right.
for 6 months, and it's going
Okay.
to be renewed at the end of 6 months, so, you know, we're out there looking for the best interest of everybody at this
Right.
time.
Well, I mean, I think these are conversations
Yeah,
that everybody
yeah,
needs to
right.
be
Yeah.
involved in.
Well, again,
Yes.
as we talked about before, you want
Right.
the public to come or to watch it on LMC-TV and have input to
Right.
this.
But I mean, nobody should be blindsided, and then, you know, constituent groups form, and you have oppositional groups rather than being involved in the conversation
Yeah.
and helping
Right.
develop it. In the minute we have left, there's one issue that I know has troubled you and other residents, and those are the properties that haven't been maintained in the village that have either been abandoned,
great
foreclosed,
We've
in
taken
prominent locations.
We've taken an extremely active and aggressive position on those. I'm glad to say that the one that started the whole thing that I pushed for very hard was what I call the plywood house. The plywood house on 611 Oriente Avenue has now been purchased, and from the information I've seen, it's been purchased by a group that's very successful, very responsible. They've taken out building permits. You will soon see a very nice house that's
Wonderful.
resurrected.
We-
There are 8 other homes
That's right.
and residents that we noted. One was a house that's been, it was literally cut in half and sitting for 2 years. It's now been knocked down. We take a position and we started a policy where we hire people to go out and they will cut the grass, maintain it, and then we actually put a bill on the
taxes and-
tax lien.
And then I know there's a very large parcel also on Orienta Avenue where a house had
Right.
been torn down.
I
and the-
think Sini and
That's right,
Orienta.
and
just found
it's
one on
over an
Cove Road.
acre and is not being
Over the
maintained
weekend,
at
there's-
all.
There's another one on Cove Road.
Cove
The roof
Road?
is, we just got emails today, the roof is caving in.
Oh my gosh.
And
South
it's that,
Barry
so
Avenue, the roof there, you
I
found in that
directed the
house,
building
yeah.
inspector to go out there and look at it, perhaps condemn it, I don't know, it remains to be seen. The village is taking very active and aggressive stances, and I said to the people out there, if you know a site, call us up and tell us, that's the best way we find
Well, I
out.
think people are gratified to hear that,
Right.
because
Yeah.
that was pretty shocking to most of us. I want to congratulate both of
Thank
you
you.
again, and
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for being here. I'm going to ask you to stay with me for just a moment while we go to the tape of the Democratic concession speeches, which I'm sure you would like to see.
Okay.
Let's go to the tape.
Lynn has won and Lou has won. I want to tell every one of you who is in this room how very much your help has meant over these last few months. You have been there to start a classy kickoff dinner, you've put signs up, you've given money, you've called and made sure we're okay. I can't ask for more than that, and I couldn't ask for a better running mate than Scott. He's a wonderful, kind person, but there are 2 very, very, very special people in this room, and one of them is Randy Rabinowitz, and one of them is Rick Villou. They have made... Running is never really easy, but if you have somebody running your campaign who keeps you kind of happy, who makes sure that you're eating, sleeping, your laundry's done, who throws in a little bit of laughter by doing smart things on our webpage, who calls to make sure you're okay and asks how your kids are and how your grandkids are, who makes it human. You are blessed, and I was blessed in that way with having Randy and Rick and Ian and Elizabeth. But I can't tell you enough how grateful I am that this was such a good experience for me. We will go back to work on Monday, and we will continue to work. Politics are put aside now. The campaign is over. We will work as hard as we have worked, and I will look to you all to continue to help us move our program forward while we still can. So thank you, every one of you. I appreciate it. And you too, Bob, back there.
I have to prepare my preparation here. I was hoping it would be on a different theme, but I want to second everything that Tony said. You know, Randy and Rich did such a great job, and I thought they were going to pull it out for us. And I want to thank Tony for her patience and her determination and her just really excellent knowledge of Mamaroneck and the whole political scene here, and all the people that she knows in the village. It was wonderful to work with her. I want to thank my beautiful wife, Catherine, for her support, and my kids wondered where Dad was walking all around the village every day. Politics for me has been about two things. One, camaraderie. You know, I really enjoyed meeting all the people and working with them. All the zillion emails that came out about each flyer that we were going to put out, each mailer that we were going to put out, and you know, trying to tone down the message or hone down the message rather, not necessarily tone it down. Also, politics is a chance to speak about things that affect all of our lives and to take some action on that. And that's something that we still need to do, whether win, lose, or draw. We still need to do that. And it's important, as George Latimer said. You know, look, this is where it begins on this local level. So we have to try and do it on a local level, and that's where we can begin to have an effect. Tonight it didn't work, but that doesn't mean, first of all, we still have a majority on the Board of Trustees, and that's a good thing, because I know Tony, and she knows how to fight the good fight, and I know Sid and John know how to fight the good fight. So they'll protect the village, I think, the way the Democratic Party would want them to. I congratulate Norm and Lou. They ran a good campaign, a clean campaign, I think. Although we may disagree on specific issues, I know that we all love Mamaroneck. We're all Mamaroneckers. And I know that whatever they believe is best for the village, that's what they'll try to do. Now, we may disagree with them on specific issues, and we often do. Thank you to everyone who's come out and supported us, and myself and Tony and the Democratic slate, and for putting up with signs and on their lawn and robocalls and multiple mailers. Nobody can say that Rich didn't get out the message. Politics is a particular type of insanity, but it's a necessary kind of madness for a functioning democracy. So thank you.
One moment, please. Nancy Seligson has to say something. We'll stand so you can see her.
Good evening, everyone. I know I'm the luckiest person in this room tonight because I did have the easiest race. And I'm sorry that the other people who've spoken didn't have as easy a race, because I really was looking forward to working with Tony and with Scott in a different capacity. But I'm very excited to be the new supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck. I look forward. I look forward to working with our sister municipalities, the Village of Mamaroneck and the Village of Larchmont. I want to thank all of you for your support for the Democratic slate in the town of Mamaroneck, and I congratulate Phyllis Whitner and Abby Katz and look forward to working with them. And of course, continuing to work with Ernie Odierna as well. So we're very happy in the town of Mamaroneck. We will work very closely with Tony and John and Sid in the village. We want to thank Fred, Barron, and Roz Weinstein for all their hard work for the town of Mamaroneck Democrats. We really appreciate it. I have to say, I never knew how much work it takes, even with our race. And I want to congratulate Tony and Scott on running a great campaign. I think they really did a wonderful job. So thank you. Let's keep up the good spirit in the Mamaroneck Larchmont community. And I have to say thank you in advance to my son Benjamin and my husband John, because it's going to get worse. Thanks.
Everybody. First of all, I knew after a couple of glasses of wine, I better prepare something to say. So it's very short and sweet. Here it is. First, thank you to the voters for their vote of confidence, and to my loyal supporters for their encouragement. I owe you all a huge vote of thanks. My husband, Murray, was my #1 ardent supporter. I'm glad it's over for his sake. He was a wreck. Huge thanks are also due Assemblyman Latimer, who fathered us through the campaign. For me, this election demonstrates it's not how many hands we shake, or miles we walk, or greetings at the train station at 6 a.m., but one's record that counts. For that, I am thankful. I do look forward, I do look forward to working with Tony and Scott in whatever capacity in the future, because our future lies in intermunicipal cooperation. Thank you all.
One more. You want to stand on the chair? Yeah.
As a first-timer, I have a lot of people to thank. Roz and Fred. Behind the scenes, Jessica Thorpe as our treasurer. George Latimer and Judy Myers were a great help. And everybody from the village of Mamaroneck, the village of Larchmont, everybody was out there helping me, introducing me to people, and it was really, greatly appreciated. I'm really excited to have won, and I'm excited to serve the town. So thank you, everyone, for coming out today.
Welcome back, and a final good night. The results are all in. I'm going to recap the numbers for you, and then a hearty thank you to everybody who's made this night possible. In the village of Mamaroneck, our incumbent mayor and deputy mayor, Norm Rosenblum and Lou Santoro, have retained their seats. Tony Pergola-Ryan and Scott Dufault put up a very good fight, but they were not successful. The numbers will be scrolling below. I'll give them to you one more time. Norm Rosenblum, 1,733 votes. Tony Ryan, 1,333 votes. 38 votes, sorry. Lou Santoro, 1,688 votes. And Scott Dufault, 1,341 votes. Again, as always, these numbers will change. These are not final numbers, but they are final for us tonight. In the town of Mamaroneck, Phyllis Whitner retains her seat. She's the incumbent council member. Abby Katz has succeeded in her first bid for council position, 2,626 votes. Phyllis Whitner's numbers were 2,410. Seth Marcus made an unsuccessful first bid for council, 1,684. And in the 7th district, the county legislator race, incumbent Judy Meyer has retained her seat with 3,197 votes to challenger Susanna Keith's 2,020 votes. Let me now say a hearty thanks to all the folks behind the scenes who make us look as good as we do. A quick rundown: Eric Lewis, Dina Schumacher, Christina Carino, Forrest, Sharon Mosley, Seth Rothman, Austin Curley, Elizabeth Pinter, Jean Grenzi, Matt Sullivan, Lisa Curley, Matt Meyerson, Andre Gordon, Mitchell Stern, John Baldwin, Sasha Meach, Louis Simmons, Kelvin Guerra, Remy Litvin, and Laura Cruz Colon. If I missed anybody, I apologize right now. I'm Alice Bloom. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.